Hi everyone, welcome back to a homegrown journey. Today I'm going to talk to you about what I've chosen to grow in September and why these are the things that I've chosen. So I know they said that this winter was going to be planning for next year, sorting out the garden and getting things ready. But that doesn't mean that I don't want to grow anything at all this autumn and winter. And there are a number of things that you can get going now, either to harvest kind of gradually in the greenhouse throughout the winter, or perhaps even for next spring when you're harvesting those crops which will hopefully come through really early. Now there are a number of things that you have to take into consideration, like how bad are your winters. So we're relatively lucky, we have a relatively mild winter here. Do you have a greenhouse or a polytunnel that you can grow under to kind of give a bit of extra protection? And which varieties are you growing? So some you get winter hardy varieties that will handle much colder temperatures much better than others. So when I was trying to work out what I was going to grow this month, I had three things to consider. Firstly, what actually grows well at this time of year. So I've been doing a lot of research into the type of crops that I can grow. We have relatively mild winters, so I've got access to a greenhouse, which helps massively. And what kind of varieties are going to do well and be kind of frost hardy over the winter. Secondly, what space do I have available to me? So I mentioned I've got the greenhouse, I've got some beds that are going to be coming clear. It's now that some of the summer annual flowers are going to come out. And third, what do I actually enjoy eating? Now I don't have a lot of space, so there's no point me growing anything that at the end of the day I'm not going to enjoy all that much. So the first thing that I'm going to grow and plant now is my winter peas. So these will go in now. I'll plant them now in the greenhouse in little pots. You can actually sow them directly out into the ground if you've got the right varieties, but my beds aren't ready for it yet, so I've still got the end of my summer flowers. So the plan is that once I've got a dwarf kind of bush variety, so the plan is when the last of the summer annuals are starting to die off, these will then come out of the greenhouse and go into the beds. The next thing I'm going to try and grow are some spring onions, and these are actually going to go in the greenhouse because it's coming to the end of their season, but they mature relatively quickly, so I'm hoping that I should at least be able to harvest some small ones in about 8 to 10 weeks time, which should be just before we're really starting to get those bad frosts, and with the added protection of the greenhouse I should be able to just about get a harvest in. Perpetual spinach is another one that I'm going to try this year. So this is the first time I've ever grown it, and I've seen it a lot online, seen people in YouTube videos who've grown it, and it's not an actual true spinach, it's a part of the beet family. The big thing that sold me about it is that supposedly slugs hate it, and I have a massive slug problem in this garden. It's like my constant nightmare, so if I can find more and more plants that they aren't interested in, all the better. The other thing that we're looking at is salad leaves. So a lot of the leafy greens actually grow really well over autumn. So you'll often hear about lettuce, all the kind of the salad leaves. We've got kale we're going to grow. So this is one where actually there were so many options I had to narrow it down because I don't have the space for all of them. So the focus really became on what do we want to grow. Now Sam, my wife, loves rocket, like absolutely loves rocket. So that was a absolute given, had to grow that one. And then I've actually gone for like a mixed salad variety. So rather than try and grow lots of individual greens, I've got a really nice, what looks like a really nice kind of mixed seeds. And we're going to try, rather than doing lots of individual ones, kind of sow one big tray of that we can hopefully pick off through. And I think I'm going to do some successional sowing, which means that I'll kind of do half the tray now, and as that's starting to really develop and I start picking off the baby leaves, I'll sow the other half. And again, that'll be entirely in the greenhouse, just to give it those bit of extra protection. And then the last one is kale. So I'm going to grow kale, hoping to get it into the greenhouse to start off with, to get it set and kind of get it a bit mature. And then once it's mature enough, I'm going to put it outside again into the beds where the flowers are going to come out of. The last thing that I'm going to put in today are my potatoes. So I've harvested all my potatoes now. So I had some first, some second earlies and some main crop. The first and the second earlies did really well this year. I was really pleased with them. My main crop were a bit lackluster. I mean, there's quite a few of them, but they didn't really get to that like good baking potato size, which is what you really want from a main crop potato. So I think I'm going to have to try a different variety next year. But I've picked up, this is going to be my first time growing Christmas potatoes. So I picked up kind of a variety called Maris Pear, which I've heard some good things about. That's going to be one of the things we're doing over the next year, is kind of making sure I actually record the varieties so that when they're kind of successful or not so successful, I can kind of keep track of that for next time so it's not quite so random. So we're actually going to clear some space. I have some sweet peas in the bed with the rest of the beans that didn't do really well this year. They were in the greenhouse for a little too long before I cleared the space for them to go outside, and they've been like put up some attractive flowers, but they've never really got going. So I'm going to cool it. I'm going to clear that space, maybe extend a little bit into under the beans, and plant the potatoes directly into the beds. Now that's actually something new for me. Normally I've planted all my potatoes in bags and kind of containers, which is really easy for harvest. It's a bit more kind of in terms of needing to purchase soil to fill the bags, because I don't like to use the same soil twice, because obviously potatoes in particular are quite susceptible to disease. But this time, because I'm going to have the space available to me, there's going to be a space in the bed anyway. I thought we'll try 2 new things at once. We'll do potatoes directly into the beds and kind of winter potatoes. It's not something I've tried before. So hopefully I'm going to get a really nice crop just in time for Christmas and that kind of like December, January period. That would be fantastic. Even if I don't, we'll have learnt a lesson for next year. Okay, so now we're in the greenhouse and I'm going to do several pots of the spinach beet, the peas and the kale. Now these you can all plant outside, but actually because I want to start them off in the greenhouse, where it's a bit warmer, where it's a bit later in the year, and I actually don't have the space outside, so I'm going to plant them into pots in here. And I've got a couple of seed trays that I'm going to use to kind of do a bed of salad. I've got a smaller one that I'm going to do the rocket in, and a larger one that I'm going to do the mixed leaves in. And then the last thing we're going to do is these spring onions, but they're going to go directly into a trough, so I just need to kind of loosen the soil that's in there, give it a bit of extra compost, and I'll show you the spring onions going in there. Now one thing to note is that I'm just using generic garden compost, so I've tried using seed ones, and I've spoken to other people and they've used kind of special seed composts. To be honest, I've never found that it's really worth it, and it's way more expensive per bag. And because of where I'm at the moment, I'm not composting yet. That is something that I want to be doing. So because I'm buying compost, I want to get my value for money. So actually I found that generic good garden compost works really well for this. Okay, so now that we've done in the greenhouse, we're back outside so that we can start planting the potatoes. Now this is the area behind me that we're going to plant them in. As you can see at the moment, it's kind of a mix of failed sweet peas and weeds. So we're just going to clear everything out, we're going to remove it up, we're going to dig a couple of trenches to plant the potatoes in. So I've only got about 7 seed potatoes, so we're not planting a huge number here. It doesn't need a huge area of space. Yeah, and then as they start to grow, we're going to mound them up and see if we get any good potatoes for Christmas. Okay, so we're all done. The seeds planted in the greenhouse and the potatoes are down in the ground outside. So I'm going to give everything a good water to make sure it gets started off right, and we'll keep an eye over it in the next couple of weeks, see what germinates. Hopefully the salad greens in particular should start germinating really nice and quickly. Obviously potatoes are going to take a bit longer. So yeah, I'm going to do a little bit more weeding while I'm out here, and then inside for a cup of tea.